Steve, I get this a lot. Like, hey, Mike, do you feel like it's going to be a top 10 class? And I do feel it's top 10. I don't think top 5 is attainable unless you get some guys where you just hit on every one of them. But I guess your thoughts on just them going for that top 10 class. I mean, just based on what you know right now, how do you think that's looking as far as a top 10 class?
Well, you have to hit big.
Yeah.
You got to get the two linebackers, Tavian and Ty. Maybe you come back around on a Jamie French, where Texas and LSU and Ohio State have been in better position. You went out for a guy like Jordan Young. You got a chance at those two D tackles with Charles and
Yeah.
Kevin Wynn and get Zion Grady coming on the edge. Look, recruiting the ranking is a preview to what we think what your program could be down the road. But it's about getting the right guys that fit what you're trying to do schematically and culturally, and then getting the best out of them during your time, having them on the roster. And I think that we're seeing that right now with Florida State, them maximizing the players that they have, going undefeated this past season. So if they have top 10 classes, continue to have one of the better classes in their conference, it's going to put them in position to accomplish all the things that they're setting out to do.
And then another thing, Steve, we haven't really talked about and jimed on this is the transfer portal. They've done so well there. I know you're really adept into the transfer portal. You mentioned some of the guys they got. They also added Malik Benson from Alabama, Dowdell, running back from Alabama as well. I added Cam Riley. So just what are they doing? You feel like from a transfer portal standpoint of just is resonating with players? Just chime into that real quick.
Well, I think that they're able to quickly show that the guys that they get out of the portal can hear their names called in the first round of the NFL draft, are going to hear their names called. You even look at it, Jordan Travis. He didn't start his career at
Yeah.
Florida State, but was one of the best players in college football under center for the Seminoles this past year. So I think that Florida State, as much as any program in the country, is able to just show these guys in the portal, hey, you're trying to get drafted. Our portal guys are fitting right into this culture. Like, we embrace you right away. You hit the ground running,
Mhm.
and they give these guys an opportunity to be the best versions of themselves rather quickly because of the way that they're able to coach these guys, get them schematically ingrained in what they're trying to do. I think they do a good job of, when they go into the portal, getting guys that are going to be able to fit their offense, fit their culture, fit their meeting room. So um, Florida State is humming in the portal. There's no question. There's not many programs doing a better job than Florida State in the transfer portal right now. And then you combine that with top 15 recruiting classes. That's kind of their recipe right now. Here they are coming off that 13-1 season, ready to try and run it back, and they'll be in the college football playoff with 12 teams.
Yeah. I mean, I think Steve, you nailed it. Development is a big thing I hear around when I talk with these portal guys, and just getting guys that are ready to work. It's not like you have to deal with a getting used to thing. I mean, these guys come in ready to work. So I think that was perfect. Now, Steve, on the high school stand, just one guy that you feel like he hasn't talked about a lot with FSU, but maybe a guy that they could certainly be in the picture for. I think for me, it's 5-star Elise Williams. Even though Georgia is looking really good in that position, he's visited FSU like a lot of times. Really likes Coach Thompson. Obviously likes Norvell. He likes this offense. He's seeing what they're going to do with Landon Thomas, who's a former 5-star or top 100 or type of player, but from just a player that either officially visiting FSU or just one that you hear that, hey, don't count out FSU here.
Maybe Lamont Rogers
Yeah.
visited earlier this spring, a guy that they're working to battle on. Jamie French.
Hmm.
I named so many names where it's clear that FSU's in the top
Yeah.
four. So trying to give you some guys that Florida
Yeah.
State could come back around on and maybe make a late move. And this isn't like a guarantee, but Jamie French is interesting, right? He's a guy that his recruitment's had some ebbs and some flows to it, and some
Yeah.
different leaders. Alabama's led, Ohio State's looked like the leader. Now there's Texas LSU talk. So Florida State, they're certainly going to continue to try and take their swing there, and we'll see what happens.
Yep. Matt, your thoughts on just some guys that or a guy that really just you feel like isn't talked about a lot, but just based on your dealings, you feel like, hey, FSU could be a factor here.
Yeah, I mean, we'll stay at Mandarin High School. I'll say Drake Stubbs, I think, is a good one, too. After we talked to him, he clearly still talks to Surtain and is close with Surtain. And you can't forget his brother also goes to FSU as a walk-on. So that's kind of a cool little extra thing that he gets from FSU, is that he gets to see more of the insides, more of the player insights than maybe most recruits do. Another one that came to mind that we mentioned already was Ty Haywood. He's only visited once, but I think Florida State, the interest here from him is like really legit. As he does come and visit again, he will have that last official visit at Florida State. But again, he already has 2 RPM picks in favor of Oklahoma, and that's the official visit right before FSU. So I think if you get him still on campus after that Oklahoma official visit, that's a very good sign there.
Yeah, for me, I would stick with like I said, Elise Williams. That's one that I think they're very familiar with. That's going to be a tough fool because Georgia does a phenomenal job with tight ends. A few others. Tony Williams is another one. UCF commit.
I can
Defensive
definitely
back.
flip Tony. Yeah,
Yeah.
Dallas Golden may be in play.
Yeah.
You know, they're
There's several guys I think that we could break down, but I mean, Mike Norvell said there's going to be like 45 official visitors for the summer of June, so there's going to be a lot of time for FSU to certainly make moves. I get this a lot on my end, Steve, and last before we let you chime off. ACC, whether they're going to be in the conference, sounds like they're not going to be in the league, but they're going to be somewhere in the future. But how will that, do you feel, impact their recruiting? If they were, say, to land in a Big Ten or an SEC, Stephen, do you hear that much with recruits or families when they talk about FSU of hey, we don't know where they're going to be?
I mean, recruiting's a game of inches, so maybe they add an inch or two being
Okay.
in the Big Ten or the SEC with just the amount of exposure that those leagues get compared to the ACC and the Big 12. Certainly the SEC and the Big 10 are more visible leagues.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I think Florida State's in a fine place right now too. As far as their football program goes. I'm not getting into the financial optics or anything. I'm just saying, they're in a place right now where they're one of the kings of their conference, which puts them in position to be in the playoff every year, which then gives you a chance to win all the marbles. So we saw Clemson win a couple national titles out of the ACC in recent memory, and Florida State was undefeated this year, and their quarterback got hurt. So they didn't get a chance to play out the string at full strength and see what they could do. That doesn't guarantee them a good year this year, but I do like what Mike Norvell and his staff have done. I like their track record, and I like the roster that they've put together. And so we'll see where they go with this thing. But if you end up, it's going to be more competitive to win the Big Ten or the SEC.
Yeah.
But I like the path to the playoff out of the ACC a little bit better if I'm Florida State, but you're going to be a lot wealthier, it seems like, if you're going to be in the other leagues.
Yeah. I was surprised, Steve, after the season, I was like, man, I wonder how this is going to impact recruiting, where kids see them getting shafted or not getting what most people thought they were. But I was surprised there was a lot of almost rebel intentions of, now I want to go to FSU because I want to show them they're that good. Is there a certain thing they have to do this year in recruiting? Because we know they do phenomenal with relationships. They are one of the best relationship-based staffs. You mentioned all the guys, Ryan Bartow, Derek Ray, all these coaches. Is there something you're looking for with FSU on the field this year to really explanation point what they want to accomplish in recruiting?
Well, this is a year where they can just show how consistent this program is, that they're going to be in those conversations year in and year out. They were in the conversation last year. You go out and do that again. This year, all of a sudden, it shows everybody that this is a program that's made to last and wasn't just a one-year special. So I think that obviously there's a lot riding on this season. But again, they did a good job in the portal to supplement some needs that they had through the NFL draft and graduation, and brought in another top 15 recruiting class behind it to help potentially fill some holes with some true freshmen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've seen Florida State take a more patient approach on the trail this year too. Instead of lining up a bunch of commitments and taking a bunch of verbals, I think they're taking their time and making sure that the guys that they do take are guys that want to be Seminoles and are picking Florida State for all the right reasons.
There you go, Matt. There's a lot to be excited about. I know the staff is excited about this summer and just what this class is going to be, but just your thoughts as well on just first off the top 10 class if that's possible, and then secondly just your thoughts on going into that summer and what needs to resonate with recruits on these visits when they official visits.
I mean, the top 10 class is probably definitely possible. As Steve said before, you're going to have to hit on some big guys, right? And you have a lot of big guys coming in. I mean, but they only have 4 commitments, and they're still, a top 15 class right now compared to all the other big dogs who have like 10-plus commitments already. So, I mean, I think that bodes well for you that you're already looking at a small number and you're already up there. And as for just official visits in general, it's going to be crazy. And what they're going to look for, I think it's just the consistency of how the staff treats them, right? Like, what they're going to be like. You just keep building on that relationship because a lot of these guys have already been here a lot. There's not much new to show them, right? I mean, you have the few guys like Ty Haywood, Josh Petty, Chase Lofton who have only been there once, but the rest of them have really been here a lot and have seen a lot. So I think it's just keep building on that relationship, keep being consistent, keep making that push, and just doing what they've been doing.
Right. I totally agree with a lot of that. I think really the official visit weekend is kind of just a coup de grace of what they've done for most of the spring. But Steve, we appreciate you being on here so long. We appreciate you dropping by. We hope we can do it again. This is great. I think it'll mean a lot to FSU fans. For fans that aren't aware, you could definitely follow Steve on On3 at Wiltfong. I think that's what it is. If you could follow it, it's right there. You could follow. This is the guy to follow. We trust him a lot. I love the combination with you and Chad together. Chad is just a close friend of mine, but also one that just kills it. So once again, thank you so much for being on the show today, and we appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it. Look forward to regular appearances like writing about Florida State. They're in the mix for the top guys. It's a coaching staff that does things the right way, in my opinion. So it's an exciting time to be a Florida State fan and exciting time to be reading On3. And thanks for having me on the Warchant show here today.
No problem, Matt. Obviously, we also appreciate you dropping by. But just finishing up this thing, you have. I asked Steve about the ACC, but what would that mean, impact-wise, recruiting-wise? You feel for them going into, just their future? What would a new conference mean for them?
I mean, I think it'd be pretty big. Look at a kid like KJ Bolden, right? Went back over to the SEC. Maybe that wasn't the deciding factor, but you get bigger games in the SEC. More sold out stadiums. You get to play at Tennessee. You get to play at all these different places that you didn't before that are going to be big time games, big time television, and that's a new big thing, especially in this NIL world where you get on TV a lot more. You're probably going to get more money. You get more ads from other places. That's a big deal when it comes to a kid who wants to be big in the NIL space and stuff like that. But again, I see what Steve was saying with the ACC. How that's an easier path to the playoff. I completely understand that. I think that's a very valid argument as well. But I just think if you're a kid and you want exposure, you're going to want to go to the SEC, especially if you're from the South, right? Like, because you grow up watching SEC football and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think it's clearly if you win in the SEC, that's a big boom. But I think any move is going to certainly benefit. And as said, Steve, that so FSU sells itself, as C pointed out. So it's not imperative, but it definitely will give a little uptick. But once again, guys, thanks for joining us. For Matt LaSerre, I'm Michael Langston, the senior analyst for Warchant.com. And Steve, again, thanks for dropping by. And thanks, everyone, for being here.